So, like I said before, we are going to just practice these trees, so we're not going to do much of a background. We might do like a loose sky around them or something like that, but the main focus of today is just practicing painting trees, which is a good thing to do sometimes if you want to just practice, an object of some sort, to not have to worry about painting a full painting. We're just practicing the trees. We're going to do probably both colors, and then if we have time, maybe a third little combination color, but I like the all yellow and all red trees. These are my favorites, so we're going to do both. And we'll kind of go back and forth between them because they will have to dry, and then we'll work on the other one, and so we'll kind of flip-flop back and forth between these two and do them kind of at the same time. Just my usual announcements really quick before we get started and give you one more minute to get ready. This is just for fun. This is all just for fun. So please enjoy. I hope you enjoy the tutorial, but also just be gentle with yourself and don't put too much pressure on yourself to make perfect trees the first time, especially if you're new to art. This does take practice, and that's what we're doing today. We're just practicing and having fun. So be gentle with yourself, be nice in the comments, be nice to me, all of that stuff. This is meant to just be a positive place for us to practice and paint together, okay? And then the other thing, this will be uploaded to YouTube, so if you want to watch this later, or if you have to leave halfway through, you can always catch up with this on YouTube. It'll probably be uploaded tomorrow. And my YouTube channel is linked in my bio, so you can find it there. Okay, so to get started here, the first thing that we need to do is put a little drop of water in each of our colors, and this helps to get the paint dissolved. You can do this whether you're using wet or dry watercolors, like watercolors out of the tube, or pans like me. And this just helps, again, to get these colors dissolved a little bit, and it helps us to pick up a little bit more paint later. So this is how I start all of my paintings, just putting a little drop of water in each of my colors. We might not use them all, but it's always good to have them ready to go. And you can use a spray bottle for this, but I've always just used my brush, so that's what I'll be doing here. And I look like I'm almost out of brown, so let me just, while you're doing that, let me just refill my brown pan here. If you didn't, this is a little cool little behind the scenes. I have these tube colors. These are the ones that match what I have in my palette already, and when I run out of a color, I just have the tube here, and I'm almost out of this brown. I should be able to get enough out of it for at least a little while longer, and that way you can just refill the pans as they run out rather than having to buy a whole new palette. So you can do that with any brand of watercolors that you have. You can mix them together. It really doesn't matter all that much. I just have a brand that I like. Okay, so that's a fun little behind the scenes. Those are all my little watercolor paints that I have stored. Okay, so once you have the water in all of your paints, that we're going to let that dissolve for a moment, and we are going to draw out our trees here. And I like to do a little bit of a pencil sketch just to yes, you can just buy the pans by themselves as well, but these, at least for this brand, the pans are more expensive, and I can use those tubes and refill these pans about 3 times. So it just is a little bit more cost effective for me, but yes, you can buy the pans as well. Okay. I'm going to put this up here so you can see it. So the general idea is that we want a trunk here, as you might imagine, for our tree. And then we want kind of this bubbly oval shape that goes around the tree. And we can make this as wide or as narrow as we want. Your tree is your tree, so you can make it whatever shape. But I like to start where I want the top of the tree to go. And I'll just kind of make this wiggly sort of oval shape. Like this. And then I'll draw a trunk coming out of the bottom of that. Something like that. So again, you can make that as wide or as narrow as you want, but that's the general shape of our tree. Don't think about it too much, just make yourself a little wiggly oval. And try to draw lightly. If you draw a little bit heavier, feel free to use an eraser and just lightly pick up some of that pencil so that you can still see it faintly, but it's not going to show through quite as much when we do our final painting. Okay, so then I lightened that up quite a bit, so you probably can't see that very well now, but I can see it in person. And we're going to draw 2 of those. Like I said before, we're going to make 2 trees today. Feel free to experiment with different shapes between these 2 trees. I might do that and just make like a bit of a taller and wider tree for this one. So this one's kind of more egg-shaped and wider. So feel free to just try out different shapes for these trees. This is all just experimenting today, so feel free to try out something that you wouldn't normally try. Okay, so there's my other tree shape. How do you know when a color is wet or dry enough to mix it or paint around or above it? I'm assuming you mean when it's on the paper, and usually the way I tell is that when it's not shiny anymore. I'll usually wait a little bit, like a minute or 2 after it's not shiny on the paper anymore, and that's when I can probably assume that it's not wet anymore. Okay, yes, these videos are uploaded to YouTube. My channel is in my bio. I'm gonna erase this one lightly as well. And I'll give you just a minute or 2 to finish up your little tree sketch there, and then we're going to mix our colors. Okay. Perfect. And then as we're waiting here, is this a special eraser? Nope, it is a kneaded eraser. You can find these at any art store or on Amazon, and they are like putty. And you kind of warm it up in your hands, and it picks up the graphite instead of rubbing it around. So you kind of tap it onto the graphite and it picks it up gradually. You can also use it like as a normal eraser. And it's also fun because you can form it into like these little shapes. If you need a really exact like eraser, you can kind of mold it into like a little skinny eraser like that. So it's kind of fun. They're super cheap. You can just pick one up at any art store. And I recommend having one if you're into art. All right, we're gonna go ahead and mix our colors here. So like I said before, we're gonna do a red tree and a yellow tree today. And we're gonna do them kind of at the same time so that we can go back and forth as one's drying, we can work on the other one. So we're gonna mix 3 colors right now. We're gonna mix this light red, we're gonna mix a light yellow, and we're gonna mix a brown. Okay, we'll start with the yellow, and I'll move this down so you can see this a little bit better. We'll start with the yellow. I just want a nice little golden yellow color. And for these colors, we are going to add quite a bit of water. This is our first layer, so we want this to be the lightest color that we're going to use. And the way that we make light colors in watercolor is by adding water. So get your yellow color and then just keep dropping your brush into your cup and swirling it around in that paint, adding water until you get a nice diluted yellow. I'm going to swatch these for you so that you can kind of see where we're going with this. So this is a really nice light yellow there. That's what we're going for. I forgot to go over my materials, didn't I? I'll do that in a second. Okay, so that's the yellow we're going for. Then we are also going to do a red. So find like not like a super bright red like this. We want to kind of mix maybe a little bit of darker red, maybe a little bit of brown into that, maybe a little bit of orange. You can mix any warm color in there that you want and get it into a sort of fall red color. And again, add a bunch of water to that. So I've got this nice sort of rust red color, I think, now. Your colors don't have to match mine exactly as well. The more important part is that you're adding enough water to make it pretty diluted at this point. Okay, so there's that red. So those are the base colors of our trees here. And then our last color is going to be brown, and this is going to be for the trunk. So use whatever brown you have in your palette. If you'd like to be a little bit fancy, you can add a touch of blue to this brown, just a little bit, which kind of cools that brown down and makes it a little bit more neutral. If you notice that tree trunks are not actually super brown in real life, they're more of a gray color. So adding the blue to the brown makes it more gray. So just do a little bit at a time until you get to a color that you like. And we're not going to add as much water to this color. So this is going to be a much stronger color because we want the trunk to stand out. So there's that brown with the blue mixed in. It's more of a gray, and I'll do a little comparison for you just for science purposes. This is the brown as it comes out of my palette, so you can see the difference there. This is the brown that's in my palette, and this is the gray that we're going to use for the trunk. And it's a little bit different. It's a little bit more natural looking of a trunk color. So that's why we do that. If that's too much or if that's overwhelming to you, just feel free to use brown. It really won't make too much of a difference, but I do like to include some color theory in these lessons for you, just for fun. Okay, so get to mixing those colors, and I will go ahead and get started in just a minute here, just to give you a minute to catch up. Move this back down. If you need to see it one more time, here are the colors. Again, you don't have to match mine exactly. And if you're waiting, just double tap that screen. It sends me a like and it helps me out with the algorithm. Feel free to do it as much as you want during the live. We're already at 10,000 likes, which is really cool. Okay. So, I think I'm going to go ahead and get started here. Hopefully you're mostly done with your colors. Don't worry about it too much. Okay, so let's start with our yellow tree. Whichever one you want to be your yellow tree. Just put some yellow on your brush and choose which one you want to be your yellow tree. And what we're going to do is fill in this oval shape that we did most of the way. So we want some little spaces, you can see here, where that white of the paper is going to show through. So we want, especially around the edges here, we don't want to take this yellow all the way out to the edges, all the way around. We're just going to kind of put it in there in sections, sort of, so that we can still see some areas through the tree. Okay, now that'll make more sense as I do it as well. So feel free to just watch for a second while I do this, and then you can get started. So this one's going to be my yellow tree over here, and I'm just going to start by dotting this color into the shape, kind of around the edge, and I'm making these little branch-like shapes. And then as we get toward the center of the tree, we can fill it in more, but we're still going to leave some little spaces where we can see through the tree. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. You can kind of see what I mean there. So some nice organic branch and leaf-like shapes around the outside, filling it in a little bit more in the interior of the tree, but still leaving some of those spaces where you can see through the tree. And this is a good thing to do relatively quickly as well. If you try to do it super slow and controlled, sometimes that can look more unnatural than when you do it quickly. So try, if you're struggling and you want a little bit of, if you feel like it needs a little bit more organic shapes, just try picking up the pace a little bit. Okay, like I have my full tree covered now. That didn't take me very long. Okay. And now, for this fun little watercolor moment, we are going to fill in a trunk. So switch to your brown now, after you've filled in your tree. And we want to do this, I'm doing this kind of right in a row, because we want to do this while the paint is still wet. And just start at the bottom, fill in that trunk shape. Okay. And then we're going to run this brown color into the yellow in some little spots, so it kind of spreads out like that. And throughout this yellow section, there should be some little spots where you can kind of put a little branch in the places where you didn't fill it in with the yellow. So you can see I'm kind of picking out little spots where you can see through the tree here, and like adding a little branch. And the brown is going to spread out into the yellow, but it's going to stay put through that little spot. So this is just adding some little branches can do these at the edge of the tree as well, like this. Just adding some little spots where you can see these branches through the tree and letting that brown run into the yellow. Okay, I'm gonna leave it like that. It looks a little weird right now. It's gonna look weird. Just let it be. Promise it'll look a little bit better later. Another little thing you can do with that brown is add like a little extra branch like down here on the trunk if you want to. Maybe an extra branch or two. Yeah, feel free to just do whatever you want with that. And one other option for you is down here at the bottom. You can clean off your brush and just use some water from your cup and bring it around kind of in a flat shape around the bottom of this trunk. Kind of puts it onto the ground. Okay, so those are just a couple of options for you. You don't have to do those things if you don't want to. That just kind of puts it onto the ground. Oh yeah, we're in the ugly stage. Don't worry. I'm in the ugly stage too. This doesn't look all that good right now, but we're gonna fix it later. Watercolor is, if you haven't noticed this yet, or you haven't heard me say this yet, watercolor is all about getting into the ugly stage and then trying to dig yourself out of it. And sometimes you don't escape the ugly stage, but watercolor has a very significant ugly stage to it. And I think it discourages a lot of people because you feel like, oh, my painting's ugly. You know, there's no fixing this. But if you keep going, you persevere, you trust the process, like you're saying, sometimes, if you're lucky, you can dig yourself out of the ugly stage. And I'm speaking from a lot of personal experience when I say that. Okay, so there's our little base of our yellow tree. I do want to say as well, if you'd like to leave me a tip or a gift for today's session, I know we've kind of just started, but I like to say this a couple times throughout the lesson. I will be giving away one of these bookmarks to you. It's a random lottery, and if you leave me a tip over $2, you are entered to win. So I will be choosing a random winner, sending you a bookmark. You get to choose the color if you win. And in the link in my bio, I have a little tab that's called Tip Jar, which makes it super easy for you to leave me a tip. If you'd like to do that and you'd like to enter to win the bookmark for today, feel free to do that whenever you have a chance. I do really appreciate tips. This is a full-time job for me, art is, and so tips do really help me just in general, but to give you a little bit more incentive to do that, you do get a chance to win one of these bookmarks today. So, the only other thing with that is to make sure that you leave me a way to contact you when you leave me a tip. So in the little message section of the tip jar, just give me your I don't know, Instagram handle, email, whatever, just a way to contact you so I can get this sent to you if you win. All my art is stuck in the ugly stage. Yep, most artists feel that way most of the time. Me included. I do have days where I feel like everything that I make is ugly, but we try and just not think that way. We're our own harshest critics most of the time, so try to look at your art from an outside perspective sometimes if you can. All right, we're gonna move on to our next tree. We're gonna do the exact same thing that we just did, just with our different color. So this is the part where practice comes in. So if you have something that you want to work on from this tree, you can work on it in this tree. So again, same thing, organic shapes, branch shapes around the outside, filling it in a little bit more on the inside, but still leaving some little spots where you can see through the tree. And work quickly. If you want to try an experiment, try working faster than you did in the last one and see which one you kind of turns out better. That'll give you a nice little perspective on what I'm saying there. You can even leave like big spots where you can see through this tree if you want to. I might leave like a big one right there. I don't know. These are autumn trees, so they are starting to lose their leaves. You will probably be able to see through these trees a little bit more anyway. So that can be kind of a fun little detail to include. I like to add some little dots kind of around the outside as well that aren't really connected to anything. That kind of helps the texture part of this as well. So just some little like dots close to the outside but not exactly connected. Okay, and once you're done with that section, go ahead and switch to your brown, your trunk color. Oh, that was too much blue. Okay. And add in your trunk. And again, all the little details we have here, we can use our clean brush with some water on it to just swipe along the bottom of that tree trunk there. Kind of spreads out the paint, gives it something to sit on. And then as we move up the tree, just find some little spots there where you can include the trunk and some little branches. And let it spread into that other color. And if there are questions in the comments section right now, I will get to them in just a moment. I do need to concentrate on what I'm doing for just a moment here. Adding some little branches around the top and around the sides. And just a few kind of poking through these sections. All right. Again, ugly stage. This does not look all that good right now. That is okay. Oh yes, and then maybe a little branch on the trunk too, just for funsies. There we go. 30,000 likes. That's awesome, you guys. Thank you so much. I've always had a harder time with watercolor. I tend to migrate more toward oil, so this is fun. That's great. I also like oil painting. You get a lot more control with it, don't you? A lot more blending. I do like oil paint, but watercolor is very fun when you, once you kind of get the hang of it. It is really, really enjoyable. Very expressive. Mine's so ugly. Again, we're in the ugly stage. It's not supposed to look good right now. We're going to add some details. I promise we're gonna dig it out together of the ugly stage. All right, anybody have any questions so far? I tried the tip jar. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I do appreciate those tips, you guys. And remember, you do have a chance to win these bookmarks, one of these bookmarks. I'll be choosing one random winner. Your voice is calming. I've learned so much from you in the past 2 years. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. It sounds like you've been with me for a long time, for most of the time that I've been on TikTok. That's wonderful. I really do appreciate that. Is there a place this recording will be so I can look at it again? Yep, it'll be on my YouTube channel. YouTube channel is linked in my bio. You can find my channel there. All the previous paint and sips are there. This one will probably be uploaded later tonight or tomorrow. I usually don't get to it until the next day. Shouldn't there be leaves on the ground? We can certainly add some leaves on the ground. We're going to do that. We would do that last, though. My paint always runs everywhere. Am I using too much water? Sometimes. I think that can certainly be the case if you're finding that it's running everywhere. Try to maybe reduce the amount of water, or if you have too much paint on your paintbrush, you can tap your paintbrush onto a paper towel and then go to the paper, and that might help you with the water part. Can I use PayPal? Yes, you can absolutely use your PayPal. Same thing. That will be included in the giveaway. I look at all the tips that I get and I just choose one random winner. So I use a number generator. So whichever way that you feel like leaving a tip is totally fine. I also have my Venmo in my bio if you prefer Venmo. It's listed in my bio. Okay, let's do like one other art question, then we're going to move on just to give people time. I feel like I've known you forever. Well, yes, Aunt Lori, I can imagine that you would feel that way. Oh, thank you so much. I got another tip. Thank you very much. Any other art questions before we move on to our next step here? Is there a way to add detail to the trunk? Yes, and we would do that after this is dry. So if I don't get to that, remind me, and we will do a little bit of detail on the trunk, but we're going to do that sort of at the end. My trees look nothing like yours. That is fine. Your trees don't have to look like mine. There are lots of different ways that trees can look. So there is no right or wrong way to do this. I'm just trying to guide you here. But don't feel like your painting or your trees have to look exactly like mine. What's the best way to rinse a brush without damaging it? That's a good question, and this will be the last question before we move on. So a lot of people will tell you that you can't leave your brushes in your water cup. So just a water cup is fine. And I usually leave my brushes in there while I'm painting. I do try to take the brushes out after I'm done painting, because it can waterlog the wood part of the brush here. But if you just, swish it around in the water, try not to grind it on the bottom of your cup, it should be fine. If you have a decent quality brush, these are Princeton Neptune brushes, and these are awesome. I have these in my Amazon storefront. I've had these for like 2 years, and I probably haven't been the most gentle with them, and it still has a nice tip there. Watercolor brushes are quite resilient as long as you get a somewhat decent quality of one. So just try to be gentle with them, and don't keep them in water for longer than the time that you're painting. Okay, we're going to go ahead and move on. We're going to start back with our yellow tree here because it's the one that we did first, so we're going to move on back. And what we need here is a darker and slightly different toned yellow. So I'm going to go with like a slightly more orangey yellow, and we don't want to add much water to this. We want this to be a much stronger color. It's a watercolor paper. It's Strathmore watercolor paper. So now we have this color here, which is a much stronger kind of almost orange color. And this is what we're going to use to add some details, okay? So with this color, I'm going to demonstrate, and you can follow along after that. I'm going to find a spot on my tree that I want to have a little bit more detail. And I'm just going to add a few little sort of dots, like a little section of this orange color here. I'm not filling in the whole thing. I'm just kind of adding in a little section with some organic shapes there, see? And then I'm going to relatively quickly rinse off my brush, dry it off a little bit, but there's still a little bit of water on there. And then I'm just going to blend out the edges, some of the edges of what I just put down. So I'm just kind of tapping my brush that has some water in it over this section, and it kind of halfway blends it out. Okay, I'm going to show that closer up there. So you see there are still some parts where there's hard lines there, but then there's also some that's blended with what's in the background. Okay, so that's kind of what we're doing, and I'm going to show that again. So I'm taking this orange color that we just mixed, I'm finding a section where I want this to be, and I'm going to put in some little organic leaf shapes, just some little dots and maybe some larger shapes there. Something like that. Clean off my brush, take off a little bit of the excess water with my paper towel, but there should still be a little bit of water on there. And then you're just going to kind of tap it, there we go, tap it along some of these lines so that it blends out in some spots but stays the same in some other spots. Okay, so give that a try. Hopefully all of that made sense. We're not going to fill in, you don't want to fill in the whole thing doing this. We're just going to pick a few little sections and do this to those sections. You can make bigger sections and smaller sections, it does not matter. And yeah, so we're just this is just adding texture to our tree. So just blending that out with my clean, damp brush. You can also, if you want, you can leave some of these spots where you just have this texture of these orange dots. You don't have to blend it all out. I think it looks nice if you leave some sections where it's not blended and some where it is. So I'm going to mix those two textures together. you can see that that's kind of the effect of that. Okay, yeah, it's Strathmore watercolor paper. Feel free as well to change up the color a little bit as we're doing this, so you can add, maybe make like an even more orange, like almost a red color if you want to be brave. And do a little bit of detail with that color. You don't have to be limited to just that first orange color that we mixed. You can be free to put a few colors in here. So there's kind of that orange color down there at the bottom. Check out her Venmo. Yeah, leave me a tip, guys. I also have the tip jar feature in my link tree. So if you click the link in my bio, the top link in there is called the link tip jar. And that just makes it really easy to leave a tip as well. So if you want to try that out, feel free. And remember, one of you who leaves a tip for me will get one of these bookmarks. You get to choose. So make sure you leave a little contact information in there, a way for me to find you so I can get you a bookmark if you happen to win. Okay, and remember, as we're back to the tree here, remember that this is a thing that you can overdo a little bit. So make sure you're kind of keeping an eye on what your tree looks like at the time. And when you feel like you have done enough, it's time to stop. And you can leave it alone, and then you can come back to it later if you feel like it needs more. But I think I'm going to leave mine alone right now. And I really, really like this effect where we have these different colors kind of mixed over there. I think it really brings in that autumn tree, and those the brown that kind of melted into our yellow at first when we did this trunk, those kind of give us some shadows in here. And so it's good to overlap those as well with this orange color. What can I add to my red to make it a bit darker? I would suggest you add blue or brown, or both if you want to. Blue will give you kind of a purple color, which is always a good color for shadows for autumn trees. Brown will give you more of a, reddish brown color, which is also good for shadows, and you can do a mixture of both. Okay. Now, let's see. Do you need another minute? If you're painting with me, let me know if you need another minute on this yellow tree or if you're ready to move on to our red tree. Let me know in the comments. And if you're ready to move on, then I will move on. Okay, I'm seeing some reddies. And thank you all for the likes as well. We're up to 42,000. That's great. Ready. Okay. Cool. All right, we will go ahead and move on because I'm seeing some reddies. So we're going to do the same thing for this red tree. We want a more vibrant red and maybe slightly darker. We don't want to go too dark because we don't want to lose the saturation of our tree. We want to keep it pretty vibrant. So just mix a nice bright red color. Again, you can mix some different colors into it, some orange, some brown, a little bit of blue if you want. Oh, that was too much brown. And you will get some different color variation, which are always good. So feel free to be creative. Whatever colors you want to put in there, it's the same technique. Here's the red that I'm going to use, a really nice bright, saturated red. Not bright, I should say, really vibrant. And same technique where we take this color, put in some nice organic shapes here in different sections and blend that out with our brush. Clean damp brush, blend that out. I kind of like to just tap it on there. And then we should get a really nice little texture and shadow. I also, while we're doing this, I just want to plug my Etsy store as well, which is linked in my bio too. I've got lots of holiday paintings and bookmarks on there. Holiday paintings are coming soon. Ornaments, painted ornaments are also coming soon, but I do have holiday bookmarks up there and just my usual paintings and bookmarks and stuff like that. So if you're interested, it means a lot to me for you to check that out, even if you don't want to buy anything. Just check it out. The holidays are coming up, so this is it's a great spot to get gifts. Art is a very meaningful gift for people, so that is always and you're shopping a small business too, which is nice for you and me. Helps me make a living. So if you're interested, just feel free to check out my Etsy store. Okay. Yeah, small business. Yeah, exactly. And speaking of not small businesses, I do have an Amazon storefront as well. And, I have several feelings about Amazon, but the affiliate codes do help me, or like the storefront does help me make a living as well. So if you're wanting to purchase some art supplies for somebody in your life for Christmas or the holidays, that's a good place to check out too. I've got all my art supply recommendations in my Amazon storefront. So if you want my recommendations on art supplies and everything that I've tried in my long life of art, that is all found in my Amazon storefront. And it doesn't cost you anything extra, but it does support me. A small percentage of your purchase goes back to me, so that's also helpful. So if you're looking for my art supply recommendations, that's where you'll find them. It's the link in my bio, and it's labeled Amazon storefront art supply recommendations. And I've got stuff of all different price points in there. How did you get your Etsy store set up in those sort of things? That's what I could use tips on. That's a good question. So Etsy actually makes it pretty easy to set up a store. It can be daunting at first, but if you just kind of take it one little thing at a time, it is fairly simple. It's nice because Etsy takes care of all of the things like taxes, and they do have some traffic that goes to their site automatically. So really, you just set up your store, you add a few listings. It tells you fill in the blanks basically of everything. I don't know how familiar you are with it, so I'm just going to tell you everything that I know. Has basically fill in the blanks, so you can just fill in everything that you need to include, and then your Etsy store is set up. And so I think I was certainly overwhelmed when I first started it, but it is actually quite simple to use. They do take about 10% of your sale in fees, so make sure you account for that. Account for shipping when you're setting your price, and try to have a good stock of things to put up there. Try not to just do 3 things. It will work out better for you if you have more stuff to choose from in your shop. So try to, if you haven't already, try to make, at least 10 to 20 things to put up in your Etsy store before you publish it. That's my advice. But feel free to just go off on your own. Go forth and do it. Do you know Scott Christian Safe? No, I don't know what you're talking about. All right. So how's this going for everybody? If you're painting along with me, let me know. How are your trees looking currently? You are welcome. Great, good, that's what I like to hear. Have we kind of dug ourselves out of the ugly phase, more or less? Sort of okay. All right, fair enough. Like I said before, when we first started this painting, we are just practicing. Mine look like mushrooms. Nice, then they're mushrooms, that's fine. My red looks like blood. Mine does a little bit too. but that's okay. We can have an emo autumn tree. I'm loving this class. Thank you so much. Do you post info in advance anywhere about your live schedule? They are always this time. So they're always Saturdays at 3 p.m. Eastern time. I do sometimes have to take weekends off. Like next weekend, I will not be here to be doing this. But if I'm going live and I'm doing a lesson, it's every Saturday at 3 p.m. Eastern time. And I announce on Thursdays whether there will be a paint and sip or not. And I also, so I make a TikTok video and I make a live event on my page on TikTok. And I also, what was I going to say? I don't know. I lost my train of thought. Anyway, you get to vote for what we paint on Saturdays on that video on Thursday. So you can always just check my account on Thursdays or on Friday to make sure, and you'll know. I'm not sure how to get the tip. I clicked on the gift at the bottom. Just icons, no choice. Oh, that's strange. If you go to my bio, you should be able to... So it's not on the live. It's if you go to my bio, you click on the link in my bio, then there's a tab in there called Tip Jar, and that might help you out. Okay. Best trees ever done. Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you so much. All right. Cool. Good. I'm glad everyone's liking the class. So we're going to add a few details to our little scene here. Feel free to just take a pause on whatever texture you're doing on your tree. You can always come back to it later. I have no other instructions for you on that, so you know everything that I know about that. Take a dark brown. I've already mixed it up here without telling you. So mix up a dark brown. Again, brown mixed with black or blue, something along those lines, and don't add too much water to it. And I've switched also to my smallest brush to give us some details. So we've got a really nice dark color there. Leroy Brown paints live on here also. Nice. I will check him out. Okay, so mix yourself up a nice dark brown, and then we're just gonna do a few little like vertical lines on our trunk here. And these should just kind of be short, kind of choppy vertical lines. You can make some of them thicker and some of them thinner. And that will give you a little bit of detail on that trunk there. Mine look like Easter eggs. Nice. Then they're Easter eggs, and that is fine. Remember what I said, that this is just practice. It doesn't always turn out perfectly the first time, but that doesn't mean you're not an artist. It does not mean that you can't do it. It is just, it can be tricky sometimes, so it takes practice. And that is okay. It takes practice just like everything else in life. Okay. Feel free to also use this brown to redefine if you lost some of your branches in here. Feel free to just kind of use this to redefine some of those branches if you need to. Or you can paint a few extra ones if you want over the top of what we've done. You don't have to do that, but if you feel like you need a few more branches in your life, in your trees, that's an option for you. I think we'll add some little autumn leaves to the ground as well in a fun way. You can do it the boring way or the fun way, and we're going to do it the fun way. Should start a Facebook group where everyone can post our painting to share with everyone. That would be fun. How do you make the paint pigmented when you add water without making it blotchy and watery? So you have to add, if you want it to be pigmented, you have to add enough paint in ratio with your water. And so if you need more paint, you need to add more from the pans as you're adding water. So you can't just add water to the paint and expect it to still be saturated. You have to add more paint. I don't know if that makes sense, but you just have to keep adding paint to it if you need more. I use watercolor pencil to define. That's great. I used to watch your live tutorials for my capstone project. That's awesome. Facebook group. So something I did before actually was, and I haven't done this in a little while because people haven't been doing it, but if you post your painting on your Instagram story and tag my art account, which is the same handle as TikTok, I would put all of them on my story so you could kind of flip through and see everybody's painting on my story. So if you want to do that, I will start doing that again. People just haven't been painting, they haven't been posting their art quite as much these days. So if you want to do that, I'm happy to do that this week. If you guys want to post on your Instagram stories and tag me, again, same handle as TikTok, so you can find me there, and I will repost all of the paintings onto my story so you can see them all. Okay, let's do some autumn leaves down here, and we're going to do it in a fun way, all right? So I'm going to use my paper towel, grab a little paper towel, and we're going to put our paper towel over most of our painting to protect it. You can see we've just got the base of our trees down here showing, okay? And then we're going to take, I still have some of these colors left, so we're going to take our watered down yellow on our brush, and we're going to flick it. We're going to have so much fun. I'm going to cover up the bottom of my paper as well here. So we just have the little spot where we want the paint drops showing, and I'm just going to flick my paintbrush. I'm just kind of tapping it aggressively with that yellow on there. And this will give us some fun little autumn leaves sitting down there on the ground. And this is the fun way. And then I'm going to switch to my red and do the same thing underneath the red tree. Maybe it'll look like blood spatters, but hopefully not. Who wants to do things the boring way when you can just flick some paint everywhere? Feel free to mix these colors up together. They won't just fall right underneath their own tree. So I'm going to put some red over here and some yellow over here. I posted the B1. That's great. Okay, there we go. There's our little paint spatters, and there's our little autumn leaves down there. That's just a fun way to do that. I like using a toothbrush and running a finger over the bristles. Yeah, that's, I have done that before too, but you kind of need stiffer paint to do that. I don't know if that would work very well with watercolor paint. I don't know how well a toothbrush would hold the watercolor paint, so I don't know. I definitely needed this in my life today. I love peaceful art. Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you so much. I'm glad you've enjoyed. Should we add a sky in the background? Let me know if we should add a sky or if we should just leave it. Sky? Okay. All right, we're going to do a sky. We're going to do a very simple, very watercolor sky to match the paint splatters that go on that went on the ground. So, mix yourself a sky blue color. Whatever color you'd like to use for your sky, whatever you have in your palette is fine. And water it down. So we want this to be a pretty pale blue sky. We don't want this to draw too much attention away from our trees. So add lots of water to this color and use a big brush. Okay, so there's that sky color. Lots of water, pretty pale color. You get the idea. Okay, and when you're ready, we are going to add a sky color to kind of the outside around these trees. So I'm just going to kind of, and you can do this in a really artsy way where you do these kind of shapes with your brush. You don't have to do that if you don't want to, but I kind of enjoy the little shapes. So I'm going to put some little shapes kind of around my trees here. And you can leave them like that if you want to be extra artsy and just leave them as these sort of abstract shapes. Or you can take your brush, dry it off, clean it off, dry it off, and then you can kind of blend, again, kind of using these abstract shapes, kind of blend the outside of those. And we're just kind of creating a texture. We don't want to overlap our trees here, so that's kind of the point. We're using this dry brush to Make sure we're not overlapping our trees because the blue would change the color of the trees. Okay, so does that kind of make sense? We're kind of making this textured, cloudy sky in the background. I don't know. I just kind of made it up in my head about 30 seconds ago, and I wanted to try it. Okay, so it should kind of look like a cloudy autumn sky in the background there. You can also use your paper towel and pick up some of that paint. This will give you a little bit of texture in there too. Texture kind of like clouds. You have lots of options, and you can make it as textured or as smooth as you want. It will start to dry after a little while, so make sure whatever you want to do, you are doing it before it dries most of the way. You can kind of revive it a little bit after it dries, but not too much. Okay, need a little bit more right there. You can add some little dots in there too if you want. It's fun to do like these textured, imperfect skies sometimes. Looks amazing. Thank you so much. This is kind of almost like an oil painting technique. This is like a palette knife technique that I've just changed to work for watercolor. Okay, little texture, and there we go. There's our sky. You can redefine the ground as well once your paint splatters dry if you want. Yeah, I think that's good. There's our trees. I don't know. Leaves that are just falling? Absolutely, yeah. So you can do that if you want to. I'm probably going to leave mine. Actually, no. I'm going to do it. I need this to be dry, though, so I'm going to hit it with my hairdryer real quick. Sorry for the noise. And then I think I might go a little overboard on the paint splatters if I do too much more, because I like them so much. But you've convinced me to do just a few more, like right here. Maybe just a few leaves that are falling, a few that are blowing out of the tree up here. I don't know. Paint splatters go with everything, honestly. You can do any painting in watercolor and add paint splatters to it, and it's like art. At least in my opinion. And the red ones that look a little bit like blood, but that's okay. It's fine. It doesn't really look like blood, right? There we go. Okay. I'm not going to overdo it. Do you have an end of painting idea in your head when you start, or do you just play on what happens? It depends. Some days I have more of an idea. Some days there's like a full landscape that I already have like planned out, and we're just going to do that. I do try to, sometimes I try to be open to, suggestions and stuff that I get from the comments. But sometimes, like today, I really just was going in here being like, all right, we're going to paint these trees and we're going to see what happens. And that's fun too, because it's fun to kind of not know where it's going to go. All right, I'm going to take off the tape, which is everybody's favorite part. And if you've stuck around this long, I appreciate you. And you get to see the tape reveal. Remember, if your tape is ripping your paper, heat it up with a hairdryer first. That will help you out. And my last announcements, because you are a captive audience and I get to plug my stuff with you, because we have this circle of trust here together, right? We have my tip jar. So if you want to have a chance to win one of those bookmarks that I was talking about, one of these, show it one more time. All you have to do is leave me a tip. It's just got to be over $2. That just covers the materials and shipping. Any amount that you can afford, whatever you want, over $2 is fine, and you have an opportunity to win. So if you want to do that, you can click on the link in my bio, and in there is a tab called Tip Jar that makes it really easy for you to leave a tip. You could also just go through PayPal or Venmo, both of which are listed and linked in my bio, whatever you prefer. Just have to do it by tonight. That's when I'll pick a winner. And in the message of the tip, you just need to leave a way to contact you. I will do my best to contact you if you don't leave one, if you win, but it will just help me out if you leave a way to contact you. My Etsy shop is linked in my bio as well. I've got lots of holiday stuff on there. I've got just regular stuff on there. So if you're looking for something for yourself or want to get started on your holiday shopping, that is a great place. I really do appreciate your support on that. I am quite proud of the stuff that's in there, so it makes me really happy when the stuff in there goes to a nice home. I also have my Patreon linked in my bio, so if you want more tutorials like this, I post them on Patreon. I also have little gifts and incentives on Patreon too, so if you want to support me that way, that's like a monthly subscription to me, and you get little perks and stuff per month. Also have my art supply recommendations in my bio. That helps me out as well, because it doesn't cost you anything extra, but it does give me a little cut of whatever you buy in there. So if you want to support me and buy some art supplies, check out my art supply recommendations. Again, all of this is linked in my bio. And lastly, we are doing an art gallery on my Instagram today, which is what we decided. So if you painted along with me, post your painting to your Instagram story, tag me, same handle as TikTok, and I will post all of the ones that I get tagged in on my story so you can look through everybody's painting from today. All right, thank you for listening to my announcements. I appreciate it. This is a full-time job. I do have to plug myself way more than I'm comfortable with, but that's how I make a living here.